Hello and welcome to the Business of Meaning podcast. I'm your host, Eric Rosenberg. Over the years, I've had the privilege of helping businesses in the meetings and event industry grow and succeed. And I'm excited to share that experience with you. If you feel alone and overwhelmed, and if you're looking to take your business to the next level, improve your strategy and sales, and connect with like minded professionals, you are in the right place. I invite you to visit eventbusinessformula.com and join our community of event business owners dedicated to exponential growth. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the Business Meeting Podcast. Today, it's an amazing guest that I never met her. We have a lot of friends in common, but I was really impressed by her TED Talk, which is breathing as a sign of revolution. And we'll talk about this. I reached out to her, and then I found out that she is a 2025 Smart Meetings Hall of Fame inductee, a smart speaker, 40 under 40 honoree, 2025 Meetings Today Trendsetter, and so on and so forth. She's been speaking all over our industry, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sepideh Sepi. Hello, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Hi, Eric. Thank you so much for this amazing warm welcome. It's an honor for me to be here. And thank you so much for listening to my TEDx and welcoming me on your podcast.
Oh, with great pleasure. And let me again mention it. It's called Breath as an Act of Rebellion. It's on the TEDx Pacific Avenue. But without further ado, why don't you tell the listener about your journey?
My journey. My journey is a little not a normal journey. And I really believe that I'm not a normal person. I never lived by the norm. And growing up in Iran, I feel like that I lived multiple lifetimes. So I left Iran at the age of 20 with my younger sister who was 17 at the time, and we moved to the United States because we both wanted to have a brighter future. And as you know, Iran is a very interesting place to be because of the political and also the location of the country. Women are very restricted by certain rights, and I really struggled as a young adult living there. Fast forward, moved to the United States with my younger sister, and then I moved to Las Vegas. And Las Vegas became my home, the first home that I have in the States. And I met amazing people in the event industry. I worked at Bellagio and MGM Grand doing convention services and operation and convention sales. And I literally grew in that space, learning how to do events. I was zero. I had no idea what meetings and conventions was all about. I just said yes to all these opportunities that's been showing up for me, and very grateful that along the way, people that I met, they held my hand, they offered kindness, they offered mentorship, they offered holding space. And I learned from some of them that who I don't want to be or what kind of a leader I don't want to be. And I send my gratitude and thank you to them also, because I really believe in conscious leading and leading from the heart. So all those lessons and time that I lived in Las Vegas, it was very valuable for me. And end of 2018, I left the hotel side, moved to Los Angeles, and joined the Elevated Meeting Solutions, opened the Los Angeles office. And since then, I've been with Elevated Meeting Solutions. However, my passion and my heart, besides the wellness and events, lands on the world of wellness and conscious leadership and conscious living. And in that area, I launched my own company, Dawn of the Earth, that it started as a tea company during COVID. And the reason was because that my heart really landed and went back to where I was born. I went back to my grandmother's kitchen. I went back to the herbs and teas that, like I learned and I grew up with. And I wanted to really bring that, like, the Eastern medicine, the Eastern connection, that warmth that, like when we sit at the table and share our food and share our tea. And that this is one of the traditions in Iran that when people come to your home, we always serve tea. It's a way of like welcoming them to our space. And I really wanted to create that connection for them to really understand that East and West can merge in one space and we all can feel one, because truly in my heart I believe that we all experience the same thing. We experience pain, we experience sadness, we experience happiness. we experience joy. All of that always tells me that we're all one at the end of the day. We may experience that in different shape or form, but we really like connected in those spaces. So my mission and vision has been always to connect and unite everyone in one space, because living in the East, knowing that how much separation and, like all these media and propaganda and like how they just feed them the
Yeah.
Eastern through the West and like West through the East, there's always separation. And my I stand for humanity and community and bringing everyone together. So from the T, I fast forwarded to become a somatic breathwork, because as you listen to my TEDx, breath played a very major role in my life in regards of like healing my trauma and all these trapped emotions and the way of living that I had in Iran, and just like not knowing how to be live my true authentic self. And breath really became an alchemy in my path. And the more I started feeling that revolution in my life and that transformation in my life, I decided to incorporate that in my wellness platform. So I completely redesigned my tea company to a wellness platform. I incorporated somatic breathwork and nervous system regulation, because I do understand very well that in order for you to be whole and completed, it's all about like operating from a place of calmness and regulated state of emotions. And working in hospitality, being a former hotelier, being an event planner, I do with all the travels. Stress is one of the number one issues that everyone deals with. And I wanted to serve the community and give back. So again, like bringing the somatic breath work to my platform, and then I joined the Global Wellness Institute. I became one of their breath initiative members. So just learning about like how we can incorporate these practices in our industry to serve, to support, to lead. And another piece that I just added recently is the psychedelic integration practices. So my wellness platform, it has three pillars: psychedelic integration practices, because I truly believe that the future of mental health is plant medicine. And plant medicine is not for everybody. So, like practicing plant medicine with integrity and understanding that how to serve others is really major. And, for someone, I see myself as a thought leader and as a forward thinker. And I'm one of those people that I would like to take the risk. I would like to try, and I would love to walk on the edge, if you want to call me. I test and try things that a lot of people they're scared of. I mean, like my migration from Iran to the United States at the very young age is like a testimony of like the fearless part of me, that I'm very fierce and I'm ready to make a difference and I want to be a forward thinker. So this platform is serving others who are ready to just really take their existence to the next level.
Awesome. I was listening to you and I was thinking a little bit of my own journey, why we left Belgium. And I realized that many people in general, they will choose misery over uncertainty. So
Yes.
kudos to you for doing that. If you don't mind, and I know you gave me the authorization to ask you that when we prepare, because there is one thing that every time I hear about Iran and the women, if I'm not mistaken, nowhere in the Quran is it written that a woman should be wearing a veil. But what I see the difference is, and when I see someone like Linda Sarsour, who was leading the feminist, it became an icon of feminism in the US, wearing the veil. And in the meantime, and you're gonna inform us on that, women in Iran who wants to remove their veil are being beaten or getting put in jail. It's just insanity to me.
Yeah. And thank you for like being so aware of these, what Iranian women are going through. Living in the States, like I always see so many question marks when it comes to like Iranians and Iranian women. I experienced that myself. I've been living in the United States for the past 20 years, and I still experience such, questions that people are not fully aware what's happening in that region. So to me, that veil is a form of suppression. It's control, it's repression. And, when you are not allowed to choose what you need to wear when you want to go outside because it's attached to consequences, that to me is not freedom. That to me is not feminism. That to me is actually dictatorship. it's something that women are not allowed to choose. Sometimes people, like, if I choose to wear the veil in the United States by choice, it's one thing. But if you are going to wear the veil and going to jail or getting killed or all these, consequences that's attached to that, it's really heartbreaking. We only have one life. What
Yeah.
you wear should not be a dictator in your life to tell you, like, if you need to, what kind of a human being you are. The qualities and values that we need to focus on is the kindness, is the compassion, is the quality of you as a human being, that what you can offer. So for example, for me as an Iranian woman who lived there, like, I mean, I grew up in an Islamic country, but I didn't grow up in a family that they were Muslim, right? So like you're very confused at the very young age, because like there's one way of living at school and in the society, and there is another way of like living at home with your family. And I'm like a teenager. I want to be cute. I want to look good. I want to see boys. Like, it's just, you're just going through the whole, your confidence is shaping. You're trying to find yourself. And then you experience all these obstacles along the way that the society is pushing you back and telling you, you need to wear a scarf, for example. Iran has advanced so much since then. Women has pushed back, since like I left in 2006.
Hmm.
Like, women has been taking the lead, and they've been fighting the system and fighting the
Yeah.
government and asking for freedom. So I'm not saying like they have placed, like, I call that like invisible borders and boundaries, that they're really like, there's so many young women that they're going out without wearing the veil and just asking for their freedom. Like, I admire them from miles away. But still, for me who lives in the United States and I have all these privileges, I'm afraid to go back there. I haven't been back there for like 10, 12 years. Like, I don't feel fully comfortable to go there because of the things that I know from like living there, and then also like seeing that how women being treated. So I don't take my freedom for granted. I don't
Mhm.
take, like the simple things that you can get up and wear whatever you want and not even thinking about it. It's a privilege. And a
Absolutely.
lot of people don't even understand that.
Absolutely. And you told me as well that one of the things you're doing now that you enjoy is taking a
Yeah.
singing lesson.
Yeah. For me, I'm very intentional, and I really lead from a place of empowerment versus victimhood. We can all sit here and we can go back to so many evidence that how women are being treated poorly, and all the things that we all know, that it's heartbreaking, it's harsh, it's unfair, it's not okay, right? But what can I do as Sepi in the place that I live to empower the women in my country, to empower my neighbor, to show them like who Iranian women are? So, I really wanted to go back to singing because our voice is medicine, and Iran is a place of poetry and music and dance, and like, this is what we're known for. And like,
The Persian's culture, absolutely.
exactly. And I look back to those times and moments where my grandparents and my parents lived, and how beautifully they were embracing all these incredible, it's medicine for the soul. And then I grew up under situations that women were not even allowed to sing. And a few months ago, because I'm curating my own guided meditation and breath work, and I'm writing all the content like in a poetic way, and I was just talking to my musicians, and I told him, I said, I want to start singing in my own tracks. And there was a moment that when I said that, I started crying. I started crying because I never even, like, for me living here for 20 years, I didn't even see that as a possibility. And we
Mm.
go back to trauma. We go back to the limitation of the belief systems and the things that I've been told at the very young age, that what you're not allowed to do, which singing was one of them. Because if women sing in Iran, solo singing, you would go to jail, or there would be consequences attached to that. So I started taking a singing class with this actually instructor in Iran, that he's teaching me how to sing via Zoom. And the first time I heard myself singing, it was very emotional. Every time I do my practices is very emotional. And my stand is, I'm standing for women in Iran because I want to just sing through all the years that they weren't able to sing. I want to stand for them and show them what's possible. It's not only about me, it's about generations of suppression and repression. And, I'm so excited for this journey. And I have no idea where it's going to take me, but I'm just so excited to just hear my voice, hear myself. And it's so healing also. It's so healing. Singing is healing. But just
Yes.
with all the background that I have, it's just really making a difference in my life.
Wow. I'm speechless, and it
Aw,
doesn't happen very often.
thank you.
Uh,
You're so
but
kind.
thank you for sharing that. I have tears in my eyes listening to you, and it's very inspiring. That's also why I love doing this podcast. Is meeting people like you and hearing stories like you. Now you have obviously all this trauma. You're coming to the US. You're starting with the industry. You mentioned amazing mentors that help you. Maybe you want to name some of the mentors that help you in
Yeah.
the industry.
Yeah. I want to name somebody who's not actually in the industry, but she was the first person that when I met her, because the first job that I got in the United States, I worked at Panda Express. And fast forward like 6 months after, I was living in this apartment complex, and the manager at the property, she just sent me a note and said, "Can you come to the office?" And I went to the office and she hired me as a leasing agent. Granted, I'm like 6 months new to the country and I have to do all these contracts. I have no idea what like renting the apartments are all about, like zero. And I remember I used to have like a little dictionary that I used to take the contracts home at night and like searching for the words and trying to understand like what all these things were about. So this woman, her name is Denise Hugenheimer. She became my angel. I worked with her, I think, for 5 or 6 years, and she taught me everything, whatever I needed to learn. I didn't even know what credit card was about. I didn't know how to rent an apartment. I didn't know how to buy a car. Like there were so many things that it was just so basic to so many
Mhm.
people who were born and raised here. She was my angel. And I always tell people, when they come to me and they talk about, like, my dad is not showing up, my mom is not showing up, my sister is not showing up. I always ask them, who else in your community is showing up? Because we have expectations for certain people or certain roles in our life to do certain things for us. But at the same time, we have an abundance of other people in our lives that when they show up, they really make a difference in our lives.
Yeah.
And I wanted to thank her because she was like the first person that when I moved to the United States, who stood for me, who believed in me. I was going to school at the time. She was helping me to go to school and then also working full time. I mean, and me as an immigrant, as a woman, that is my role and responsibility to give the same thing back to people
Mm.
that I see and they come along the way. So I recently hired an assistant. She moved from Colombia with her husband a few years ago. And I met them at the beach very randomly. And we just, they're in their 20s, both of them. They started sharing their life stories with me. And it literally took me back to that moment when I moved here and I didn't know a single person. And I
Mm.
looked into her eyes and I said, "I'm going to help you." And I just knew in my bone that this is my time. This is my time to give back. This is my time to stand for another person. This is my time that to listen to this, to the inner voice, and really stand for people that they really, it's courageous. It's courageous for you to leave your country and come to America. And I have
Yeah.
so much respect for immigrants because leaving all the things that you know, especially your community and your family, and moving to a new city, to a new country, a new system, it takes a lot of bravery and adjustments and timing. And so, like, that's one part I wanted to just mention her name and just remind all of us that it matters that we give back. It matters that we just offer a hand to other people and offer kindness and generosity because this world only it gets better when we us people start helping people around us in our circle.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and then in the industry, as I mentioned, when I started working for the conventions, Tim Glanzer actually, he was the executive director of convention services at Bellagio, and he hired me as his own assistant. And basically, that's how I learned the industry. He took me under his wings, he taught me the industry. I became the employee of the month at Bellagio. I was the finalist for employee of the year. I became a convention services manager at Bellagio, like producing events. And then with Elevated Meeting Solutions, I work with him as a third party event planner. So There are people that they walk to your life, they show you the way, but then you make a choice how to embrace those opportunities. I was a hardworking individual who wanted to make a difference in the world, and I'm always grateful when people see talents and they
Hmm.
believe in you. You know what I mean? Like you really elevate in that space. So I'm always grateful for him and the opportunities he's given me.
That's awesome. That's small world. Now joining both, it's your background, your history, the trauma you went to, and also what you know in the industry, and you're now starting with all this wellness initiative. There's one thing I want to ask you because when I started my first business and I said, okay, I had two clients. Those are my clients. Nobody's going to do it better than me. It's my brand, blah blah blah, and I just like work like crazy and almost burn out. And
Yeah.
so this is unfortunately, that by the way, that's how I also love coaching people in our industry and helping them going over that hurdle. But you have this experience and then you help people with the work you're doing now to lead beyond burnout in the industry. Can you speak about that?
Yes, because burnout is what I hear on every single conversation from the hotel side, from the planner side, from the client side, any industry that we work with, from tech, finances, pharma, health. People are living in this state of burnout, and burnout doesn't happen overnight. Burnout is a buildup of fight, flight, or freeze for too long. Burnout is like us not taking responsibility for our mental health, for our physical health, for our emotional health. Burnout is a process. So, like, I work with a lot of leaders, I work with a lot of people, clients that my work with them is just help them to get out of fight, flight, or freeze because a body conditioned to live under fight, flight, or freeze for too long, the cells in the body starts changing and shifting, and the only way that they can go back to normal is by putting the body in the state of regulated state of emotions. And breath is this inner medicine that we have that can help us to get us to that space. And that's why I'm so passionate about the power of breathing. And I remember 6 years ago when I was proposing to do breath work, in every single space of hospitality, people were like, no, Sepi, we're not getting people in the conference room and ask them to breathe. That doesn't make sense. Leaders are not going to do that. People are not going to be interested. And they were kind of right because at the very beginning, my sessions were not packed. My sessions were like the people that they were coming to my sessions were the people that they were living conscious living. So it was like a really handful of people that they were saying yes to that.
Mm,
But I did not give up. I did not give up because I could see a lot of potential in that space. I knew that people needed alternatives. A lot of people were tapping into Western medicine, which I don't have anything against that. But like when something is chronic, you really need to just get to the roots of the problem and see how you can help yourself because being on pills, staying on pills and medications for too long, it doesn't help your body. And also,
mm,
I'm always the fan of like holistic practices where it's applicable, which this is like a great way for anxiety, panic attacks, chronic depression. I always say, like, we're living in a global chronic depressive moment, era
mhm,
in our
mm,
world, right? So,
right.
based on the reports that we see, between 70 to 80% of the people they're dealing with either with anxiety, panic attacks, new generations that they're born to technology, a lot of them they're dealing with like managing their stress. They have social anxiety. The Gen Zs are just dealing with a lot of that. So it wasn't only from the top, it was like a collective that I started like really feeling it and say, okay, there is a space for this. And fast forward, one of the major momentums that I've had was when Caesars Entertainment, I had a conversation with Reina and she said to me,
Oh, she's wonderful.
she's amazing. Reina
Yeah.
came to one of my sessions with Gabby when I did it in Vegas. It was just like total, like off the strip, not industry event that I was doing a somatic breath work. She came with Gabby and they did the session. And then right after the session, Reina said, we need to bring this to our events. And I was so fortunate to work with both of them. Reina got behind this work for the past beginning of the year Q1 and Q2. We did like about 7 cities roadshows, wellness roadshows that we got in front of like top event planners and we did immersive experiences about breathwork, nervous system regulations. and the responses, it was like people couldn't even believe this because people, like, I feel like being part of this industry long enough, we are really good at wearing the mask, and we're really good at like saying that I'm fine, I'm okay, and we're just living internally under a lot of stress and pressure. So that vulnerability and that safety that I create for them, the safe space that they can be themselves and they can let it out. And the first concern was, well, I don't want people to cry. And in my head, I'm like, I want people to cry
Mm.
because as much as breath is our inner medicine, also there's a reason that we have our tears. And I really value our tears because the tears, they're there to release the tension, the pressure, the unprocessed emotions. So when I talk about these things, like, when people go through divorces, COVID was major because a lot of people lost their jobs. Like all these traumatic experiences that happens in our lives, and we don't know how to process that. The more we suppress and repress our emotions, it leads to depression. Tears, on the other hand, helps us to release those emotions from our
Mhm.
bodies, and how
Yep.
powerful that is. Like, so I always bring them back to this inner wisdom and inner medicine that it's anciently, it always existed within us. We
Yep.
just chose to ignore that. So from these experiences, group practices, tears, vulnerability, openness, what we create is a community and connection and safety, and that's unmatched and priceless to me. And I'm so grateful for Caesars for taking the lead and believing in me and this work, and also wanting to make a difference in the world.
Amazing. Now you're talking about the divorce and COVID. I was at the dinner recently when somebody introducing himself said, "Yeah, I've been married for 20 years. And during COVID, I realized that I loved my wife."
I love that.
Everybody was laughing around the table. You also have a lot of experience with plant medicine. And I know that, I mean, years ago it was like taboo. Now it became like buzz and it became trendy. And probably now we're coming back in the middle of what we can do with that. So,
Yeah.
what is your experience with plant medicine? What do you recommend for people to do and to treat what?
Yeah. So I really see plant medicine is the future of mental health. And how many people they live on Prozacs and, different antidepressants that they go back to the doctor and say, I'm not getting better. And then they just like add another dosage to that. So plant medicine, I want to be very clear with that, is not for everybody. It's not. Plant medicine, on the other hand, it has so much wisdom. Plant medicine gives you insights. Plant medicine gives you the information that the subconscious has been holding on to because it didn't have a safe space to share or to release those information. Plant medicine is a catalyst. So my work is mainly the integration part. So when people sit with the medicine, they get a lot of downloads, like for example, one of the personal experiences that I've had from my relationship with my father in my life, it's been very intense, and through plant medicine I was able to just heal a lot of trauma that I had with my dad. And that was one of the reasons that I got, like, it was just all my curiosity from my personal healing and personal discovery and exploration where led me to places that I wanted to bring this to humanity. So through that experience, I was able to really go deeper within and understanding that what happened. And really at the very end, I saw my father as a child. And in that space, it was able to offer a lot of forgiveness and compassion. And plant medicine is a heart opener. And a lot of times, like, I work with a lot of people that they don't understand, the more we live life, sometimes they close their heart because of the events and incidents that happens in their lives. And they just want to protect their heart and they want to protect themselves. But they don't understand that they're setting all these invisible boundaries and walls around them, that they're just very numb to life. So like plant medicine is beautiful in regards of like activating those senses, bringing you back to life, like reminding you joy, happiness, healing, possibilities. And my work is integration. So I sit with them. We sit with the body because our body holds a lot of information. And working in somatic world, soma means body. Walking is the body work. Eating is the body work. Sleeping is the so like we ignore our body so deeply and majorly, especially in the West, because we're so focused on Western practices, which I don't say they're not practical, but however, our body has its own intelligence. And when we really sit with the body and like receive those information and go deeper through somatic practices and like working with the integration practices, people start like seeing the world so differently. Leaders, instead of operating from a place of like limiting belief systems, they're able to lead from the heart. And this is really something that I'm really focused on and I'm very passionate about, that we've been told in the past a leader is a leader who makes the best decisions. The brainy leaders, they were getting rewarded in the past. But now the connection, the heart has its own intelligence. A leader who's able to offer compassion and empathy is an outstanding leader to me. A leader who can connect the heart and the mind is a leader who can lead from those both areas and tap into those intelligences, which plant medicine can really help you in that space. That can be an elevated human being who can be connected versus being disconnected and transactional. It can be a present person in that space versus being like totally like exchanging business card and moving on with life versus like how you get curious about my life. I would always remember you. I would always remember this conversation because of the way that you're showing up in that space. And plant medicine is that, is bringing, opening that space for us to tap deeper within. So in my work, there's the whole process. They have to just definitely go through, like, I check their medical, the medicine that they take, like there are certain people that emotionally they're just not in a place to receive that at that moment. Mainly I do work on microdosing, so it's like a smaller dosage where people can function during the day, they can work out, they can live their lives. But at the same time, they learn how to manage their anxiety, ADHD, all of that, that we deal with. Because to me, it's important to be able to apply that to our day to day. And recently, I just submitted a talk to South by Southwest, which we all know it's a forward thinking platform. And my talk, it's called Beyond the Trip. And the whole concept is about when you sit with the plant medicine, now what? Because if you're not integrating back to your body and really downloading those information and understand how to apply that to your life, it's another high. It's like we're chasing another high. And I'm not for that. I'm about going deeper. I'm about to listening to our bodies because your body holds different sort of information versus my body, right? So only when we're present to those moments, we're able to really hear that. And that's what the plant medicine does, which I'm really excited. I love to see all these, so many lawmakers, they're just really being open-minded to that. They're investors. I go to MAPS conference, which I was there in Denver in June. I was so moved and inspired just to see like how it's expanding and humanity is just people coming from all over the world asking for these practices because they know the power of plant medicine.
Yeah. I actually, talking about lawmakers and change, I had the chance to meet several times Dan Engley, who wrote the book A Dose of Hope,
Yes.
and basically was explaining that there was the 60s or 70s that it was being banned, but for the wrong reason, and now it was changing. I'd love to listen to you for hours, but it's the podcast. So let me ask you two last questions for today, if you don't mind. The
Of course.
first one is, we're always talking about performance, especially in the US. You have to be performing. That there's competition for everything from sports or activities since a young age, and sometimes, unfortunately, that creates anxiety. That creates a situation, a context where people are starting to take pills and things like that. How do you go beyond that in the future and put back the human side at the center of everything we're doing?
I love this question because, as we both know, our industry is very performance driven. And all the industries that we have in the US are very performance driven. I just came back from France and People were on vacation. It's summertime. Nobody's working. And I'm literally thinking about my life here.
But no, nobody's working in France, not only during the holidays, the whole year.
Totally. And it was an epiphany, it was an aha moment. Although I have a very well balanced lifestyle, I literally, when I came back, I was thinking through the same thing, that how we are so living in this FOMO and constantly wanting to produce. But here's the thing, when you put your worth and value on those performance activations, numbers, it really messes up your psyche and your confidence. So, one of the things that is very common with hotel sales, like there's so many amazing high level performers, but every year their goal get reset. They become zero, right? So they could be the best performer the previous year, but now they're zero. And if they're not performing to that number again, their worth and value is nothing. And I always like look at that as like human psychology, their confidence and worth level. How do they, the internal conversations that they have with themselves? And what I've been able to do for me is I create rituals. Again, I go back to the ancient wisdom, morning ritual, midday ritual, night ritual. How do I help myself to just slow down and pause? And simply breath work is actually a beautiful way to just come back to yourself, to just sit and close your eyes. And you don't have to know meditation, you don't know how to breathe. You can just like slow down your breathing, simply that, and just tap into your heart. Again, I bring that concept back to the heart because when you're performing, you're living in your brain a lot. You're analyzing, you're living in logics, you're just putting data together, blah, 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 the whole thing. And I always invite people to just slow down, and breath actually can be a very strong catalyst in that space to bring you back. So, even like if you can put your hand on your heart, close your eyes, and do deep inhale from your mouth, and big sigh, release and let go, and drop your shoulders. And I invite you to hear that sigh. Deep inhale from your mouth, big sigh, release and let go. Just like practicing that, it helps you to break the automatic from like a fast paced lifestyle and bring you back to your body, bringing you back to your space. And sometimes when I'm driving, like when you're driving, you think about a lot of things. Or when you're taking a shower, people are not thinking. When they're brushing their teeth, these things that they're living in a hypnosis state, they're not being present. So when I brush my teeth, sometimes I change hands. Like I'm right handed, I brush my teeth with the left hand. So I need to be present when I'm brushing my teeth, right? Or when I'm driving, I really try to be present when I'm holding the wheel. I feel it. I start like paying attention to that feeling. It's all like activating the senses. When I
Mhm.
work out, instead of like getting lost in my thoughts, when I'm holding the weight in my hand, I feel the metal. These are like small practices, but it bringing your attention back to tangible things. It really distracts the automatic from like getting lost in your thoughts.
Amazing. And we all need that.
Yes.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Before I ask you the last question, again, your name is Sepideh Eivazi. How do people get in touch with you, learn about your work, invite you for a session, for a keynote? How can they get a hold of you?
So LinkedIn is always a great way to reach out to me. Sepideh Eivazi, Sepideh is my first name, and last name Eivazi. And by the way, you're one of the first few people who pronounce my name correctly, my first name and last name. So kudos to you. I was very impressed. And also my website, dawnoftheearth.com. There is a section that it contact us. You can always shoot me a message. I read all the messages myself. I respond to all the messages. And my Instagram, Sepideh Eivazi, also is available. So you can reach out to me on any of those platforms.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, my last question. In 1 year, when we sit down with a bottle of champagne, or sorry, when we sit down with a cup of tea, what are we going to celebrate?
Progress, just progress. I really think that this journey for me, it didn't have a clear 2025, 2020, 60, whatever, and none of those. It was just my curiosity that led me to different places. And every time I progress, every time I can give back to humanity, I'm winning. and you're winning, and people around me are winning. And progress to me is the real success. The timing, it doesn't matter. It's just the progress that we make along the way, the lessons that we learn, because every single lesson is a gift, and there's no mistakes and there's no errors, and we're not failing. We're all expanding, we're all growing, and this is what I truly believe in.
Thank you so much. Glad we can meet. Looking forward to meeting you in person. And thank you for
Yes.
everything you're doing. Thank you for tuning in to the Business of Meeting podcast. I hope you found today's episode valuable. If you enjoyed the show, the most important thing you can do is leave a review and share it with your colleagues. It really helps spread the word. I truly appreciate your support. And if you're ready to take your business to the next level, don't forget to visit eventbusinessformula.com to learn more about how we are helping even business owners like you. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.